Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Link NKY Community Conversation. My name is Megan Goff. I'm the executive editor at Link NKY. And I just want to thank everyone who came in person and everyone who's watching online to take the time out of your night to come and talk to us about how parents and schools and teachers are all working together to make sure that our students have the best outcomes possible. Before we get started, I have to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Fisher Homes, whose support allowed us to hold this event, along with Global Business Solutions, which allows us to have interactive audience questions here and at home. Our other sponsors include the Northern Kentucky Forum, Executive Transportation, Gateway Community and Technical College, and Republic Banks. If everyone here in the audience could take a look at your program, there's a QR code on the front. It has a link to Pigeonhole, which is how you can ask questions live throughout the event. For those at home, we'll have a comment in the comments section with a link to where you can ask questions live. Finally, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask y'all to support our work. These events are free, but they aren't cheap, and your support helps keep them free for the community. We'll also have a link in our comments on Facebook for how you can donate, and there's a QR code in the program as well. And that's all from me. I will now toss it over to our amazing moderator, Evan.
Yay. All right. Megan, everyone. Thanks, everyone. We have now done these for 1 year, which is pretty cool. So we're back from whence we came. Our first was talking about Amendment 2 a year ago, and now we are back here talking about education. Megan hinted at it a little bit. For those of you who've never been here before, we do the conversation part using the app or the website Pigeonhole. That just helps us respect our panelists' time a little bit so we can kind of keep things moving. It's also a little more inclusive for the folks who are streaming us or watching online or on Facebook right now. So that is all to say, if you raise your hand at any point during this, I'm not ignoring you by not calling on you. I just need you to follow. It's not personal, it's protocol is what I like to say. If you don't have a smartphone or you don't feel comfortable signing into this Pigeonhole program, we do have a way you can get a question. Megan will personally put it in for me. If you are in Pigeonhole and you see a question and you said, that was my question, you can upvote it. For those who are familiar with Reddit, you can upvote them and it goes right to the top. The more upvotes it gets, so it becomes the first thing I see. That's also something, I'm not being rude to everyone by being on my phone when we're sitting up here with our panelists. I'm just watching your votes and your questions come in. We always like to have some resources for you at each of these that are sort of around the theme and the solution we're working towards. So at the end, we'll have about half an hour when we're done for you to meet the folks in the back who have some resources for you, and that's everyone from the library to Educate NKY, and Educate NKY is a great transition for me to bring up Jenny Watson. Jenny is the vice president. I have the cheat sheet because I'm going to mess up your title every time. It's the vice president of Early Learning and Family Power at Educate NKY. We asked Jenny not only to be a panelist, but to also kind of give us a landscape assessment of the education issues and structure here in Northern Kentucky. If you don't know about Educate NKY, you can find out more in the back. I know somewhere Shai Calvo is going to be like, Evan, don't mess this up by describing us. They have done a ton of research, multiple landscape assessments on different topics in education over the past handful of years. So they are a wealth of data and information about where we stand here in Northern Kentucky. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Great. Thank you, Evan. Thank you all so very much for being here. And I think it's important to know, again, I think credentialing kind of matters in these conversations. So I am a 27-year educator. I've been a teacher, I've been an instructional coach, I've been an assistant principal and a principal. And most recently, for 8 years, I was assistant superintendent in Boone County. So education is my passion. And it's something that I lean into, and I'm super grateful and honored to be here representing Educate NKY, who's really just a great partner to schools and districts and really trying to increase outcomes for kids. So that's a little bit of who I am. So I'm super honored to be here. So this conversation, I'm kind of charged with setting the table for what the panelists are going to discuss. So in order for us to kind of frame that conversation, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about shifting from parent engagement to family power. So think family power instead of what family engagement is. So when people ask what the purpose of public education is, they often expect a policy answer or a mission statement. But for me, it is much simpler than that. The purpose of K-12 education is to prepare every child to think critically, act responsibly, and contribute meaningfully as citizens, workers, and human beings. But none of that happens in schools in isolation. Children do not walk through the schoolhouse doors as blank slates. They bring their whole world with them, their routines, their stresses, lived experiences, traumas, family dynamics, confidence, and curiosity. So in that sense, families are not an accessory to learning. They are the original and most consistent teachers in their child's life. So the real question becomes, how do we make families true partners in this mission, not just participants? Across Northern Kentucky, we see consequences of what happens when schools and home drift too far apart. Take chronic absenteeism. Today, even some kindergarten students are missing more than 10% of a school year. That means that these little ones miss up to 2 days of school per month throughout that school year. This creates the start of a pattern with a family feeling disconnected, unseen, or overwhelmed by systems that might have never been built for them, with them in mind. This is not unique to Northern Kentucky. This is a signal of a national trend. But in our region, where strong community ties are supposed to be our Northern Kentucky superpower, it's especially striking. One of the things that we uncovered in Educate NKY's landscape assessment is how limited our state's data systems are when it comes to truly understanding family-school relationships. The Kentucky Department of Education technically tracks several indicators of family engagement: parent-teacher conference attendance, volunteer hours, and site-based council participation. But in practice, only one of those measures, conference attendance, is reported by schools with any real consistency. And even that data tells an incomplete story. Across Northern Kentucky, about 3/4 of elementary parents attend parent-teacher conferences. That drops to about half in middle school and even below half when students get to high school. It isn't surprising. Adolescents want independence, schedules get complicated, but it is a reminder that the family-school connection weakens just when students need the most guidance. Yet there are bright spots. At Lincoln Elementary in Dayton, conference attendance last year hit 100%. At Mary Getz Elementary in Ludlow, another majority low-income school, attendance topped out at over 90% last year. Those schools are proving that poverty is not destiny. Intentional partnership is. When schools make relationship building part of their operating rhythm, families respond. And while many schools conduct parent surveys, often because Title I requires it, these surveys differ significantly in content and quality. They rarely use common questions across schools or even districts, making it impossible to kind of compare one school's results with another or to even assess for regional trends. So what's missing is not the surveys themselves, it's alignment and transparency. We need a shared framework for high quality parent satisfaction surveys, one that keeps flexibility for local priorities, but also includes consistency of core questions that every family gets asked. That consistency would let us compare apples to apples across schools and understand just how families actually experience their child's education. These results should not just sit in a drawer. They should be visible to families, to educators, and to communities so they can inform public conversation and strengthen trust. If we can't measure the health of family relationships in a way that's comparable and transparent, then we can't learn from schools who are really doing this work well. Part of our challenge is the word engagement itself sells short of what we're actually aiming for. When a school says, quote, "we're engaging families," it often means that we're communicating at them. with newsletters, emails, parent nights, reminders. Engagement is important, but it is not the same thing as partnership. Partnership means doing things with people, not for them and not to them. It's built on shared work, shared trust, and shared accountability. Too often, school systems, and I know this as an administrator, are designed around control. Locked doors, buzzer systems, background checks, prescribed volunteer slots, all of that is understandable and needed for safety. But it can unintentionally signal, this is our space, not yours. Meanwhile, families bring their own lived experiences. For some, school was a place of success, but for others, it was a place of shame. Those histories linger. When you combine guarded institutions with guarded parents, you get compliance, not connection. So what does family power look like in practice? It's not about parents taking over schools. It is about a balance of power. Educators and families recognizing each other's expertise. Teachers know instruction. Families know context. When those perspectives meet, both sides make better decisions. Here's a simple way to think about the progression. Engagement means I inform you. Involvement means I invite you. Partnership means we do this together. And when partnership deepens, families begin to see themselves as co-designers, shaping how schools operate, not just showing up when invited. Building this muscle of partnership is one that Northern Kentucky schools are really working to develop. This kind of partnership takes intentionality, structure, and transparency. I often describe it as having 3 separate parts. Part 1, belonging, building community. Families need to feel seen, welcome, and valued. Schools can host family cafes, host home visits, or simply create regular spaces, coffee chats, community meetings, student showcases, where dialogue feels natural. Measuring success here means asking, do our families feel that they belong? Number 2, learning and academic achievement. The cornerstone of why schools exist. Families should have clear access to their child's progress, not just on report cards a few times a year, but data that they can understand and act upon. That's where regular communication, plain language data sharing, and trust come together. It's also reciprocal. Families share insights about strengths and motivations of their child, and teachers listen. And number 3 is advocacy. Advocacy is balance of power. This is where true family power emerges. When parents have organized spaces to speak into school priorities, to help set goals, to review data, and propose solutions, the dynamic shifts from compliance to collaboration. These 3 elements reinforce one another. When families belong, they listen. When they understand, they engage. When they're heard, they lead. At Educate NKY, we are not declaring we have the solution. What we are trying to do is incentivize school leaders to lead through partnership. This year, through our Family, Youth, and Community Partnership grants, as an example, every public school in the River Cities had the opportunity to identify a real data-informed challenge, something like improving attendance, strengthening school climate, or deepening family participation, and then work with families and students to unpack that problem and co-design a solution. The grant itself is modest, but what matters most is the process. When asking schools to meet families where they are, not where the school wishes that they are. To listen before deciding, to test ideas and learn together. We now have 14 schools in the River Cities participating. Each is charting its own path, but collectively they're helping shape the region and help the region learn what authentic partnership looks like when it is practiced yet not preached. Our hope is that their lessons will inform district culture, community investment, and ultimately how we measure and celebrate strong family-school partnerships across Northern Kentucky. At the end of the day, this is not about programs or checklists. This is about restoring the idea that education is a shared enterprise, something we build with families, not deliver to them. If we want students to think critically, act responsibly, and contribute meaningfully, then we as adults must model that same practice. This means listening deeply. This means sharing power and working side by side across all of our differences to give every child in Northern Kentucky the start they deserve. Because when schools and families act as true partners, when they do things together, the ripple effect extends far beyond test scores. They strengthen neighborhoods, restore trust, and remind us that public education was meant to be a partnership that is powerful enough to shape the future. Thank you.
Well, don't go anywhere, Jenny. We're not done with you yet. I will invite you to come take a seat. So if Jenny has set the table, I guess it's time to eat. Let me introduce you to your panelists tonight. We'll start with Mary Kay Conley. Mary Kay is the director of Read Ready Covington, which is an early literacy collaborative that's now expanding to other cities across Northern Kentucky. Hannah Mail's been teaching in Newport for 12 years. She's now in her 7th year teaching kindergarten. And April Drain is an education advocate, host of the Parent Camp podcast. Since she moved here to Northern Kentucky, April has been active in parent leadership programs and community advocacy. Your panelists for the night, and I see a number of you have already been putting questions into Pigeonhole, so thank you very much for that. Why don't we get started? Let me start with a question to play off of what we just heard from Jenny. I'd like each of you to give a diagnosis of how we as a community broadly in Northern Kentucky are supporting the education systems around us. From you, because we have an educator, we have a parent, we have an advocate, someone who's built a program. Each have a different perspective. So from where you sit and work, how are we supporting the education systems we have? April, start with you.
From the parent side, Jenny, awesome information. I mean, really, being a newcomer here to Kentucky for 3 years, I came into a school system where I didn't know the state, I didn't know the systems, and in 3 years, I can say we are emerging, we are evolving from a parent's perspective, so that's where I can initially say we're doing, yeah.
So as an educator, I think that as a community, the community's doing the best they can with the information that they have. I think we've come a long way from where we even were when I first started teaching. I think there's a lot of ways for the community to get involved, and most of the community I see get involved the best that they can. I think the only thing we can do is to continue as educators, as schools, is to bridge the kind of gap that we might have so that we can continue seeing the parent involvement in the community get better and being involved and knowing what's going on in the schools.
Wow. I feel really old, Jenny. 38 years of education in education, school counseling, and nonprofit educational development as partners with schools. And I see a huge difference. When I was first in undergrad, there was no family engagement training. Today there is. I think teachers, I had the honor of supervising undergraduate and first-year teachers through NKU previously, and I was so amazed at the teachers in the classrooms and the skills that they had. So that, I think that's better. I think we are continuing and working to train our teachers better, and we have to, because the world is totally different now than when I was an undergrad. But then there's also there are all of the outside activities, the out of school time that didn't exist in the past, and that's a huge strength. The opportunity for individuals to volunteer at schools, we always had that, but I think it's more intentional now. One-to-one reading, adopt a class, some of those kind of programs. That's a game changer I was an oddball as a teacher because I invited community members in to talk about issues to my junior high classrooms. But now that is something that is really encouraged. So those are some of the things I would say.
I would agree with April. I use the word emerging a lot. I would say that in terms of a diagnosis, that's where we are, again, around this parent-family partnership. I think that we as educators are responsible for helping civic education emerge and evolve, and that means this idea of partnerships. We know what's happening in communities and society, and it's not the way it was 30, 40 years ago, even when I was a child. It's very different. So people have to lean into the schools, and we as the educators have to open up the doors for people to come in a safe way, following all the protocols. But that mindset has to shift, and we see pockets of that happening in Northern Kentucky beautifully, and I think that that's what we're trying to leverage and push forward.
We've talked a lot about partnership. We've heard partnership a lot already, and we're question one in, already one of the top questions from the audience, and it's one of the ones that I had as well, so I'm going to jump right into it, is what does an ideal partnership look like? What does that word actually mean in practice from an educator standpoint with the community? And what would the ideal be, ultimately?
So I think that first it starts with you have to have a relationship. As an educator, I have to have a relationship with the community. I have to have a relationship with the families of my students, and that has to start early. I know at the school that I work at, before the school year even starts, we do home visit days where we visit every single family and we put a face to our names and we build that relationship right away. And I know relationship is a word that's thrown around a lot in education. Lots of people say, oh, you have to have a relationship, but you have to have like that real, authentic relationship with them where they are comfortable to come to you to share what they might need from you, and where you can go to them and tell them like what's going on with their student. So building that real, authentic relationship is a really important thing to do to make that happen.
Is a home visit common? Maybe this is me showing my age, but that did not happen
I
30
don't
years
know
ago.
a lot of, I don't know of any other districts that do it besides the one that I work in. I know sometimes they do it for like preschool, like random home visits, but we do it for every single student, and it really is a really powerful thing. Like the kids and the parents look forward to it at the beginning of the school year. They're like sitting out on their porches waiting for us. They're excited to see us come in, and it really does help to like build that relationship before the school year even starts. So, yeah.
And I can add to that, because there's a couple districts that I know of that adjust their calendars for their teacher workday to even not only do home visits, but then invite the family has a scheduled time to meet with the teacher and the principal before they ever start school. And that happens every year. So that to me is being very innovative and saying, and really you're setting the tone with, we are working together. That's a very strategic move on the part of the school to say, I want you as part of this learning journey. So I mean, those kind of things are happening. I also would envision a world where parents are not just volunteering in this school, but they're helping, let's say me as a principal, make decisions for what we're doing with curriculum and how we're moving for, for student academic achievement and all of that. We do have site-based decision-making council structure in the state of Kentucky. The power dynamics are odd on that because it's 2 teacher reps typically and 3 parent reps, or opposite, 3 teachers and 2 parents. So it's all automatically a power dynamic, but I would envision a day where parents are at school, out of school, working with children, helping make decisions, having coffee chats with one another to help, peer-to-peer matters. So that would be an example of what I would love to see.
I want to even piggyback off the site-based. That's how I actually got involved when I first moved to Kentucky. We moved here August 8th. School started the week after. I found out about site-based and that they were looking for a minority parent rep. I didn't know what that was, but I saw parent leadership, any parents interested, and I said, not from here, but I'll throw my name in the hat. And 2 weeks later, I found out that, hey, you've been nominated and you can now start attending the meetings. Didn't know what I signed up for, but I was grateful that I read about it and that there was an opportunity, and just to sit in the space where there were teachers and a principal who said, hey, we value parents' voices. That was new to me, but that was encouraging to me being new to the state. But then that one door opened up so many other doors. I found out about Commonwealth of Institute for Parent Leadership. Didn't know what that was, but I saw parent and leadership. So it was one door kept opening up other doors. But even when you mentioned opportunities where the principal, he started to do community breakfasts at least once a month, and it was from 8:30 till about 10:30. You can come in. We're going to have some pastries from the local bakery. We have students who will take you around the school. We have teachers who will be here. This is an opportunity. We want to open the door. So that made me as a parent feel, okay, it's not they're guarded and I'm guarded. It's we're all here for the same thing. So again, kind of piggybacking off what we're all saying, when you just have that one opportunity and you can see, you do want us to be here, and here's some opportunities where we're saying the door is open, we're inviting you, come on in. So yeah.
I think one thing that we need for a true partnership is to suspend assumptions. And that, goes to when we talk about relationships, but it also, that's one piece. And then the other is to really seek out and look for each person's fund of knowledge or funds of knowledge and assets, because everyone has those, and that is an opportunity for that person to become the leader that they may not even see in themselves yet.
Yeah.
So really, you're not teaching a child, you're really serving an entire family. And by partnering with a family, and I can think of situations both as a parent and as a professional where the conversation really progressed because we became equal problem solvers. There's something, it could be a behavior, it could be academics, it could be attendance, but working with that as partners and not assuming we know the answer allowed us to get to the solution.
So I asked you about an ideal partnership, which is nice. It's a nice question for me to ask, but we are here because the partnerships are not ideal. You cannot engineer an ideal partnership and have it work every time. A lot of questions already in the chat. A question I had and had posed to you earlier was, how do you reach out to the parents, the families, the caregivers, the community members who are not actively looking for parent and leadership on a sign or a sign up? How do you reach these parents who may not want to be an active partner in this, at that level?
Look at the long game. It may be something that they need, that they're seeking right away, and you can help them with it. But it could also be just giving them information and inviting them so that they feel open and willing and welcomed when they do need something or when they are ready. I've said to some of our partners, I didn't get a response from this partner today, but maybe next month or next year I will hear from them, and then it will start, because it has to be two ways. It can't be just, I'm ready for this, why aren't you?
And I would say sometimes it's about being strategic with who is making that connection. A lot of times people might think, you're the principal or you're the teacher. I think of you as authority. Therefore, I don't want to engage. But the system in the school should be built where it's a peer-to-peer model. There's nothing better than a mom of a 5-year-old meeting another mom of a 5-year-old, and then the children play, and that's a safe space a lot of times. So I think trying to really think higher level about how is the system built in the school so that there's peer-to-peer opportunities that are maybe driven behind the scenes by the school leadership team, but the people out in the community that are trying to engage are peers of the parents. So that's just one strategy.
So kind of piggybacking off of what both of you guys said, as an educator, I've had those families and those parents who are hesitant to reach out to me or who are hesitant to get back to me. What I do is I just keep the door open for them. Like you spoke about at the beginning, sometimes some of their experiences in school might not have been that fantastic. Maybe they didn't have that great relationship with those educators or with that school, and so they're hesitant to kind of open the door again. So I just continue, like I send my newsletters. If I want to send them a message, I'll still send them a message so that they know that I'm going to keep communicating with them. You know, I make sure I send lots of positive information home about their students, and not just necessarily the things that they might need to work on. And I find that eventually, if I keep that door open, they will come. If they don't, I'm lucky to work in a school district where we have a lot of connections. So if I can't get that connection with that parent, I can find somebody else in the building who can maybe get that connection. But I just continue working at it until I can get that parent to kind of see that these are people I can trust. These are people who are looking out for my kids and who want what's best for my kids. So even if it's just they come in just a little bit and respond okay or yes, for me, for those kind of parents, that's a win in my book. So.
Yeah, that's good.
What happens for the students who don't have that connection at the parent level and that partnership at the parent level with the schools?
Can you expound on that a little bit more?
So we've talked about the parents who aren't showing up maybe, or you're struggling to form the partnership with. Do you see a different outcome in the students?
Not necessarily, no, because I have, as an educator, I have the same expectations for all my students. I have the same, you know, I teach them just the same as I do any other student. You know, they might need a little bit more support if they're not, for instance, like getting their homework done at home. But really, I don't see that big of a difference in the classroom with them. Sometimes they might need a little more, but as an educator, I just provide them with that little more that they might need.
I think that might surprise some people.
Yeah, I think at the school level, you work with whoever is caring for that child. It may not be. It might be an aunt, an uncle, a grandma, whoever it is. But the idea is, you know, even if there's not that representation at home, within the walls of the school, every child has to have a trusted adult. And so that is really cast upon the educational team to ensure that that is happening, you know, and as, when I was a principal, I did that very formally. Who is the trusted adult? Every child had the opportunity to submit to me as the principal. Who is their person within the building? That person could be that pseudo parent rep, so to speak, when, you know, when you were doing events and activities or parent conferences or what have you. But, you know, you bring the walls of the home into the walls of the school and vice versa. You know, that's part of developing that system of trust.
This feels like a daunting task in many ways. You're not just an educator, you're kind of a communicator and an outreach coordinator at times, it sounds like.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it is harder for those who might not have that connection. Like sometimes they do need a little bit more, but I think, thankfully, I have learned how to give that support to those students who need that extra, or to reach out to those people in my school who can be that pseudo, you know, parental person for them. And I'm not saying it's that easy everywhere, and I'm not saying it's that easy for every single teacher, but I think the educators that I know try their best to, you know, fill in that gap where it's needed. It's definitely easier when you do have that connection, but we try not to let it be a barrier when we do have that kind of disconnect. So.
On that note, what do you see? I know you mentioned the home visits as sort of a game changer. I'll ask actually each of you to answer this, but like, what do you see out there that is working in engaging parents or caregivers, and maybe this will transition us at some point, like the broader community as a whole? Because I think, Jenny, you said it, you can't just be messaging at them and calling it engagement. So what's working?
So I work with Parent Camp as well, and it's a model, it's similar to what Educate NKY is doing, but it's, instead of sitting and parents are just being presented at, parents are actually the facilitators.
Pardon the interruption.
Oh.
If you are here to make autumn lanterns, we are hosting you in the manufacturing room in the children's department.
Don't leave.
I do feel like I'm back in the classroom. So, great. At least we didn't get called to the principal's office. At least not yet.
But parents are the kids' first advocate. You know your parents. Parents, we're teachers as well. Teachers are educating in the classroom. Parents are educating at home. And with Parent Camp, that's another opportunity to engage with communities and partner with schools. And sometimes it's just, let's just sit, what are you all wanting to talk about? And we're going to have rooms set up where you can facilitate the conversations, because sometimes parents feel that they're alone. They feel like their situation is the only situation until they get into a room with other parents and they feel like, okay, you're going through the same thing I'm going through. Wow, I wouldn't have known that had there not been an opportunity where I don't feel like someone's preaching at me and someone is more of an expertise. And I'm an expert in my child and my child's experience at home. You are as well. When there are spaces like this where parents are able to come and sit and engage with partners and communities and education systems, where it's not us against, we're all here for the kids. That's the biggest thing. If we can always remember we're here for the kids. I'm not here to make you look bad. You're not here to make me feel bad. We're here for the kid. I know my kid's strengths. You as a teacher, you've gone to school for this. I respect what you do. I was a substitute teacher for 18 months. That was more than enough time. From kindergarten through high school, I learned a lot. So even if it's a parent you don't know, well, they just want pencils and erasers. Go into a classroom for a week. You will send all the pencils, all the things that teachers need. But again, if we can respect each other and know that there are opportunities. But again, to your point, Parent Camp, I just mentioned that as an example. But anytime that there is an opportunity for communities and partners to just come together, partner and parent have the same letters in it. Just rearrange a few letters, parent and partner. We're all trying to do the same thing. So that's just one thing I would mention.
I think some of it is, it's through partnerships throughout the community and reaching families early on. You know, agencies like EC Learn that work not only with early child care providers, but also with families. And they reach them early. And some of the programs that have been possible through PBS Kids that we've been able to do the last couple of years until recently. And currently we have programs like Play with Purpose, and therefore families, it's not bring them to story time and read to them, which is valuable, but it is interacting, it's teaching strategies on how to prepare your child in a very casual way. And more importantly than that, it's parents talking with parents. It's sharing their expertise with each other. It's not the sage on the stage. It's really just being part of the group. And that's where that relationship building or that foundation of confidence begins for parents. Because being a parent is really intimidating too. No matter how old you are, suddenly you're responsible for this little being. And it's always nice to bounce ideas off of other people.
Yeah, Mary Kay talked about that really early end of the spectrum. And if you guys think about it, if you have kids that are upper elementary, middle school, high school, right? The level of engagement often for the child falls. I mean, it's just the way the data says. Like, a lot of times there's, excitement in elementary school and there's a lot of partnership, let's say, happening there. But by the time they go up that learning continuum, lots of things happen to them developmentally. A lot of times they want to be alone. Peers become so much more of a critical influencer in decision making. And so that's where really it's cast upon that partnership between the parent, the family, and the school to figure that out and find common ground. And that's what I love what April says. April knows her child best, knows what he's good at, what he's not good at, knows what he likes, what he doesn't like. It's my job as the educator, whether that be a teacher or a principal or whatever, to know that about that child so that we can have those conversations. And then I can go to the parent with, this is what I'm seeing happen with Joey in the classroom. What are you seeing at home? That is such an important time, and it's unfortunate. This is not just Northern Kentucky. We know it's a trend that we see that level of disengagement from both parents and kids happening a lot in middle school and into high school. So there's lots of great work happening with people in this room to reinvigorate that and to put solutions in place, but it is something that is an issue.
One of the questions I had written down was along those lines. You touched on it. What are some of the circumstances that lead to that breakdown?
As a middle school teacher, I remember parents, I had a parent come in as I was just explaining a mathematical principle to a student who had come up to my desk at the end of the day. The parent had come in unbeknownst to me, stood behind us, and when the student went back, she said, I finally understand that. Because they're starting to feel like, oh, I'm not sure if I really get this, even in middle school. Doesn't matter who the parent is. That happens. And also, students want that at times. They're in an ideal world, they're taking ownership of their own learning, but that doesn't mean they're alone in their learning. Parents still need to want to be involved, but they somehow feel that maybe their student doesn't want them there quite as much. And so it is a dichotomy. And basically, as parents, what do we say? Well, I'm sorry, I'm still your parent. I'm still going to be there. And hopefully, the schools have enough opportunities for them to feel like they are still welcome, because they don't have as many cute activities to do in junior high and high school, maybe. They are more now, though. I think with a lot of the instructional practices, I think there's more the parents can be engaged in and understand, I think.
And I'll say, from an elementary perspective, middle school teachers are like my heroes, because I was like, I'm scared of those kids. But in high school, I'd be fine with. But that age is it's just really a difficult time. But I do think, though, it's really finding what matters to that child. And I think that there's formal and informal ways to do that for kids. But really, again, it goes back to that level of communication and partnership between the families and the school. But it's also talking to the child. There's a lot of agency. Kids will tell you what they like and don't like. They'll tell you what they want to do. And so engaging, we have a lot of project-based learning, and we talk a lot about hands-on experiences and career exploration and workforce. They need to see value, and I would say a definition of engagement for kids is really that the student sees value in the learning they're doing. Do they see themselves as, does this matter to me? And if the answer is no, then we have to do something different as teachers. So I think that's really, really important, and there's a whole continuum of engagement in that definition, but the kids have to find value in it. So.
And let's be honest, that middle school to high school range, kids are still trying to find their own language, what they're feeling. They have kids who are trying to figure themselves out. They're trying to teach each other about things, and they're still figuring things out. And as parents, we're trying to figure out, when did I become your parent? It's so many things. And I tell my kids, I have a 23-year-old, 17, and 15-year-old. The way I parented my 23-year-old before COVID, the way I'm having to parent my kids, the 17 and 15-year-old since COVID, it's different. And so having to be honest with your kids and staying curious, because a lot of times the kid, you can ask your child, what happened today at school? And they will tell you nothing. And so much has happened. But if you just take that as okay, they didn't say anything, you have to keep the door open. You have to stay curious. And I thought when I was doing substitute teaching at my daughter's high school that it would be like this cringy thing until it was, oh, you're Jasmine's mom. Oh, Jasmine, your mom's here. And then I would just joke around. If the kids see that you will find creative ways to be in their space, yes, and even if it's, okay, yes, I don't know the new TikTok, whatever, but I'm willing to sit in the space with you. I'm willing to sit and be curious. And then at 12 o'clock at night, my 17-year-old comes in the room like, I know you asked that question 2 days ago, but now I'm ready to talk. It's 12 o'clock. But you never know. Just knowing, though, that, okay, I have a parent. Yes, you're tired, but Mom, I remember you asked that question. Is it okay if I ask you this now? Stay curious. They need us even more the older they get. And so I think sometimes if they're finding their language, it's easier as parents to say, they'll figure it out, they don't need me. It took my 23-year-old telling me when she got through her master's, Mama, I need you every way. I needed you every step of the way. To hear her say that, it makes me want to push in even more with my younger. So stay curious is one of my biggest things, because it can be easy for you to just shut down. I don't know what that language is. I don't know what that slang is, but I'm going to sit here until you can tell me what that means. And until you do, I love you. Yes, I'm going to hug on you. You just keep trying. There's 26 letters in the alphabet. You just keep trying a different alphabet until you find the one that works for your kid.
April, I can add to that. When you say stay curious, one of my kids grown up now, they're 23 and 20, but they would be like, Mom, I'm in college, stop doing this to me. They would come home from school. How many of your kids do this? What'd you do today? Nothing. What'd you learn today? Nothing. And it's just this, I just think it's a little trick. I began when my kids were little, I called it hearts and smarts. Hearts means tell me one thing that you did kind, you demonstrate kindness, or you saw somebody do something kind for somebody else. And smarts, you have to find one thing you learned. Hearts and smarts, it's super easy, you can always remember it. And my 23-year-old, when he was at UK, would say, Mom, please don't ask me about hearts and smarts anymore. But it framed, it gave a protocol to the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think parents of young children need to hear from older parents. Don't judge yourself today.
Oh, yes.
Do everything do what you need to do now, and don't judge yourself when they're going through adolescence,
Yes.
because you'll be really down on yourself because they will do that for you. You don't need to do that. But the day will come when they say thank you.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful that she's come to that.
Yeah.
Some of them take longer, but that is something you have to think about. You're in the long game.
Yeah.
So don't give up, don't hold back. And we had a mandatory, one of my sons was not into hugs. We had a mandatory hug every day because that was a connection. You know, the other three were fine with it, but that was what he needed. Now another kid might need something else. Somebody else needs the hearts and smarts. One son told his brother, "You tell them way too much." And why do you always tell them everything that happens? It's like, because you don't, you know? So everyone is different. Give yourself some grace and go for the long game, and don't give up. It's a lot of things to think about, but that's basically do the best you can.
I agree with everything that they all said. I can't speak on the teacher part of it because I teach kindergartners, but I am the mother of a 13-year-old, so I am in the thick of it right now with everything that you guys are talking about. And I agree with all of them. You just got to find the way to like make that connection with them, whether it, like you said, do the hearts and smarts. I ask my son every day, what'd you do today? And he gives me the nothing. So I just ask him another question. All right, well, what was the best part of your day? What'd you talk about with your friends? How was lunch? Just anything, like you said, to let them know that I'm going to keep asking these questions. I'm going to keep being involved, and you're eventually going to have to share something with me because I'm not going anywhere. This isn't over right now. We're doing this.
I want to transition a little bit from the parent's relationship with the student and the parent's relationship maybe with the teacher to the parent's relationship to the curriculum, because I think a lot of parents are wrestling with this right now. This is a hot issue. A lot of people are talking about it. And so I want to know what the parent's role is in the content of what is taught in the classroom.
I think being aware of what is being taught in the classroom. They don't have to be masters of it, but to be aware of it and to be willing to say, I'm not sure, but let's look that up together. You know, you don't have to be the master. But to be aware, the role, I think, is to understand that there are different ways to learn, and the way that the parent learned may have been very different, but we're all going to get there, you know, and maybe you can learn a different technique or strategy, and maybe you can teach your child another way so that they see that there isn't one direction, one set of procedures. Now, sometimes there are, you know, that's true. But giving them that creativity to say there are multiple ways to learn and to celebrate that.
The non-controversial example of that is new division, because I can't do it. I could not help a student do that. But what about a hot button issue?
Well, I think sometimes the definition of curriculum gets misconstrued because, the state, Kentucky Department of Education, basically we have state standards that all teachers are required to follow in every grade level. So we call that kind of like what we teach is those standards. I think what you're leaning towards is more, how are we getting there? Like what is the set adopted, what state of Kentucky would call HQIR, high quality instructional resource, or HQIM, high quality instructional materials. So, and how are those decisions made? I would just give you the technical definition, that in Kentucky a few years ago, Senate Bill 1 basically gave the decision making of the how curriculum is taught to the superintendent. So the superintendent does have the authority to decide in every school district in Kentucky what and how those standards are being taught. But at the local level, so you take from the district and the Board of Education down to the building level, there is some level of decision making there where parents as a site-based council member do have some autonomy as a local group to kind of make some decisions. Those decisions kind of vary maybe by elementary, middle, high somewhat because that resource is there, it's purchased by the district. But there is some level of, are we going to follow that from start to finish and cover to cover, or are there some potential literature or books that are in that could create a level of discomfort? And that decision really could be left to that site-based council with parents and teachers.
Generally
represented.
speaking, how do parents get involved in a site-based council? Because I think
You wanna-
some
April,
years probably perked,
Why
right?
don't you want to take that?
From my understanding, I did it I had a 2-year term, but it's usually the largest school, parent organization, and so typically maybe PTA, they put out some type of notice either towards the end of the school year or the beginning of the school year, and you send a resume and you say what you're interested in doing as far as being a part of that particular board, and they do a vote from the school parents. They vote on whoever has submitted their names, and it's usually 2 parent spots and a minority parent spot. Usually as simple as that.
Teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is kind of the operating mechanism of Kentucky school districts is you set policy at the local level. You have to use the school districts as a kind of a model, but then you take it down to your building level. And it is kind of all the behind the scenes things I think you would attest to. So that's the structure of how decisions are made with curriculum.
So a parent then has a level of discomfort with something their child has brought home, something that their child has repeated that was said in the classroom. What is, from an educator standpoint, how do you engage with that? From a parent standpoint, do you feel like you have an outlet to raise the issue and say, I didn't like that, I'm not comfortable with that being taught to my child? How does this dynamic, part of the partnership work?
For me, the leadership, the openness of the leadership, principal, teachers is important. And not that I personally had to deal with it, but there were parents that brought things to the site-based board as well as to the principal, things that they weren't proud of or wanted to speak on. And parents are encouraged and are welcome to come to those site-based meetings as well. So that's another thing. They have them, you can check your school's website and they should let you know when the meetings are scheduled, and you usually need to just at least notify the school beforehand what your grievance is or what you want to bring to them so they can make sure that you have a time to speak directly during that meeting. But it's something that we have to be open to. It's so many different personalities, so many different ways to teach things, and so you have to be open. And so there have been grievances brought, and usually the principal and the teachers, they will typically say the reasoning why something was presented, and if that particular parent doesn't feel that they were heard, or if they don't feel like their child should be involved with things, there are things you can sign notes to be excluded from certain things so that your child does not get reprimanded or punished. So there are still ways for you to communicate as a parent. I don't like this particular thing. What was the reason behind this? And typically, if you have a good principal And I want to say we have a lot of great principals and teachers who really are wanting the best for your child. They will find creative ways to still make sure that your child gets the attention and the same level of care and education as everyone else. So, yeah.
I think a lot of it also is communication with a parent, listening to them, what you said. But I think of situations where parents had preconceived ideas based upon a title or a subject area, and once I've done sample demonstrations, like sample lessons with groups of parents, more in the counseling realm with a psychoeducational group than this, but also in the classroom. I found it best just to collaborate with it, not collaborate, but really keep the parents well informed of anything that you think would go home and be misconstrued, or that they might get a snippet from their child and it's totally out of context for it. So just make sure families know things, what's coming up. Those newsletters are important, bringing up those topics and saying, contact me if you have any questions. I am really interested in what you think and how you feel about this, or if you're confused about the content.
And I'll just add, I think it's seeking to understand. You know, if you have somebody that brings something to you, I would want to investigate that as a principal or a teacher, be like, okay, clearly, you know, how many people might think this about that? Is this a majority, and have we missed something? And so then you kind of pivot, you kind of assess where you are with that, and lean into being a problem solver as a partner to those parents.
Interested. Have you run into this?
To be honest, I have not run into this, but again, I teach kindergarten, so there's not as many of those, you know, circumstances where you might have like that content or those things that you're teaching they might not agree with. But if I did, I would just kind of handle it the way these ladies said. You know, I'd be open to their feedback. I'd definitely hear what they have to say about it. If I needed to, I'd bring in my administrators to have a conversation about it. If it was that, you know, they are not comfortable with the children learning that material or learning in that way, it's my job as an educator to teach them and to get that material to them. So if that means I have to do it in a different way, then I'll do it in a different way. But like I said, just keeping that door open for that conversation. Sometimes I know that, like you guys said, the information that goes home can be like misconstrued. So I just would make sure that they understand, like, you know, they might have thought this about it, but really it was this. And sometimes just having that conversation lets them know, like, oh, okay, I thought that this was going on, but really it's this. So just hearing them and making sure that we're keeping that line of communication open to do what's best for the kids, so, and their families.
Along the sort of a tangential line, but I'm curious what the biggest misconception about your role as an educator is when it comes to parents or the broader community.
Well, as a kindergarten teacher, I think a lot of people think that I'm just hanging out with kids, babysitting all day, that we're taking naps and we're having long recesses. But I mean, kindergarten is hard. We're teaching them the foundation for everything that they're going to need to know moving forward. We do a lot of hard work. It's an 8-hour day. You know, they get a 25-minute recess, a 30-minute lunch, and the rest of the day we're spent learning. We teach them everything from letters and sounds to blending the words to, you know, they come in, some of them not holding pencils, to, you know, writing whole sentences. So we're working with those kids all day, every day on all of those foundational things. And this might just me being a kindergarten teacher, but like the things that we teach them, I think, are some of the most important things that they're going to learn in their educational lives that are going to pivot them forward. So yeah, definitely that.
Not to mention the shoes you tie. Or
Yeah,
you
the shoes you
Velcro,
tie, the
the
tears you
noses,
wipe,
the
the hugs you give, yeah, all the things. Teaching them how to be little humans, because a lot of them come and they don't even, you know, they don't, especially with COVID, they don't know how to have friendships or relationships or problem solve. So we have to teach them those like social emotional skills too, and how to handle those big feelings or how to handle that fight or any of those things. So we're doing a lot throughout our day. It's not just, you know, hanging out with kids and playing all day, so.
And I would add too, like she mentioned social emotional learning, there's so much more than just reading, writing, math that teachers provide every single day. And a majority of our school districts around here have something called a portrait of a graduate or a portrait of a learner, where those are competencies that are, some people call them employability skills or soft skills, but those are intentionally taught on how do we persevere, how do we demonstrate resiliency, how do we improve work ethic and teamwork and all of those things that are not part of the curriculum maybe. So, and those are, I always say teachers are superheroes because they truly do provide so much more of the whole child than anybody can really see in one particular year. So, thank you for what you do.
We did a whole panel community conversation on teen mental health and maybe more broadly youth mental health, but some of these concerns I think really escalated after COVID. One of the audience questions that I really like, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on because you can go watch that entire hour and a half community conversation, but mental health with young people is such a hot topic right now. And I'm curious what role these partnerships, so the educational systems that are in place, the community, the parents or the caregivers, how do these all interact? What role do you need to have, and how do we address these issues within the existing structures? That was a big question.
You're saying how do you fix all the problems?
Yes, how do we make problems go away?
Just
Well,
how do you
and
fix
actually,
all
let me ask the question from the audience because they worded this better. If I can find it, it just went away. But it was, how do you? There it is. How do traditional educational approaches that we know and that exist work with sort of this new dynamic, or I would call it maybe an increased awareness of these issues? So how do the existing structures work here?
How does it now compared to traditional educational practice? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Is
so
that
they
what
said
that
how
person's
can
asking?
traditional educational approaches work with this new dynamic among mental health discussions amongst
Ooh.
teens?
I don't think that the historical traditional teaching educational system, I don't think it was bad, but I don't think that there was any emphasis on the social and emotional development of the child. It was about, come in, I'm here to teach you this, math, social studies, science, reading, etc. And there was nothing about becoming a whole human being, which is interesting because historically our public school system was developed to build in strong, active, educated, and engaged citizenry. That's the purpose of our public school system. So if we don't do that with the whole school, or with the whole person, then we are not meeting our mission.
Yeah, and I'll add, I mean, it's been a rough couple years, specifically in Boone County, regarding, suicide attempts, suicide completions, and a lot of mental health issues. And so the whole system was really evaluating itself, internally. We were having lots of conversations about that. And really, when we analyze what is happening and talk to our, great principals and teachers and leaders, it kind of boils down to something very simple. It really is about, yes, we're still doing all the evidence-based practices for teaching, yet we are also making sure that every child has that trusted adult and giving that child the voice that he or she needs within the walls of the school, trying to also engage that within the external walls, the communication with families and parents and stakeholders outside of the system. But it really does create that sense of urgency about going back to the whole child. As I put my administrator hat, I care about every child growing a year or more in reading and math and science and social studies, all the things, specifically in reading and math in elementary school. We've got to have literate human beings. So that was always at the top. But it should not be instead of or in spite of people feeling a level of stress and discomfort that is not healthy. So that is really about bringing the child at the center of the ecosystem and making sure that that is nurtured and protected and valued. And that takes intentionality. I kind of spoke to that at the beginning. It's intentionality regarding systems that are put in place around that and transparency about what we're doing.
I think it has to do with changing to the concept of process, not promotion. That we go to mastery rather than, oh, you're 8 years old. Okay, you're going to be in 3rd grade this year. It's not about what age you are and what you are, that we have to understand that some kids, I taught 3rd grade as well. I had 3rd graders doing 5th grade work and 3rd graders doing 1st grade work in my classroom. But I was helping each of them progress at the level at the best that they were able to do. And it wasn't the same for each of them, but they were each progressing. And we as a traditional system say, you have to do this. But we're finding, and you can speak to this at Gateway, we're finding a lot of people don't find their way to higher ed or to certain trainings until they're 25 or 30 years old, some at 42. So we have to look at the system as not age related, but as mastery related.
I think also, just to add on to the question again, is how the traditional,
The existing
The
sort of
exist-
traditional structures.
some of it, and it goes back to the partnerships, the schools can only do so much. I mean, the teachers, we want the teachers to be the all in all. We want the teachers to be the parent. We want them to be the advisor. But then if there's opportunities for community partners, there are certain businesses that can volunteer their time. My son, I don't know who this teacher is or how, but it was a retired teacher who decided for a couple of days a week, he wanted to just be there at the school. He was just gonna be at the school. My son didn't know what his purpose was, but that teacher would just randomly talk to my son and just say, hey. And then he said, Mama, so I'm gonna see Mr., I don't wanna say his name, but I'm gonna see Mr. So-and-so, and it's other more kids during RAP that have it at least one period a day where it's kind of like an open study hall or a chance for them to catch up on things. That retired teacher had so many kids who just started to come and just sit. So the school gave him an opportunity in the open, they call it the open common area or the cafeteria. And so for 30 minutes, he's just talking to kids. It's just a person who said, I want to do something, and he just came and just volunteered his time. Wow. So even if the teachers feel like they have a lot on them, you may know, maybe there's local psychiatrists, there's local businesses who have expertise in something, men who want to mentor and just say, hey, I'll just be at the school and greet your kids as they come through the door. Or hey, there's gonna be a prom coming up. Hey, we'll donate haircuts for the week. That's something that my son's school did. They had different barbers and there were local beauticians who came for homecoming. And they just came and donated their time, but the kids, they felt so excited. So I'm getting a call in the middle of the day, Miss Drain, are you okay with your son getting a haircut? Yes. I mean, but it was just like, okay, so those are opportunities as well, because if people in the community feel like they have a service, but they don't know where they have a place to do it, and you also have kids who are saying, I need to talk to somebody. I can't talk to my teacher during class in 35 minutes, but there's a parent or a retired somebody who has a skill, and I know they're gonna be here one day a week, and they're intentional and they really care enough, you'll be surprised to know, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be seen. Everyone wants to know I'm heard by somebody. So just the fact that this retired man comes and sits with them for 30 minutes, 2 or 3 days a week, and they're just talking about everything, and I say everything, but it's something that my son feels seen and heard, because it's not a person who's tied to the school, it's somebody who says, hey, I used to educate, but still have some time, and I want to show up.
Talk about 2 incredible examples of community partnership.
Yeah,
That's right.
You know, if you have a business, if you have a trade or a service,
Right, yeah.
and you want to support your schools or your educational system, haircuts for prom is, everyone's got to do it.
Yeah.
We all do it. We all had to do it, right? You're kind of both in that like teen prime time mental health as parents right now. And I think that's an incredible example, but not every school has that.
Right. But everyone can though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a baker and if you can just bring cupcakes to your kid's school and just, the teachers will appreciate that. So it's not that there has to be this big, lofty, long list of, you have a skill that can benefit somebody. So it's not this side of town gets it because no, I promise, if you knit, my daughter loves knitting and she's in band and a parent saw her knitting and they brought her a skein of yarn. And so hey, I teach this at home with my grandkids. If you can just keep your eyes open, I promise there are small opportunities if we're curious enough. There are plenty of opportunities in the community to partner with our schools.
I love that. There was a question from the audience just now that said, how can parents or caregivers support other students beyond just their own? So thank you for reading the minds of our fine folks in the audience or watching us online right now. But I do actually want to open that up too. What other ways do you know of other examples of these kind of community partnerships, or maybe I would call them an indirect? So it's not parent or caregiver to student to education system. It's coming at it from a different way. Are there other examples that you see working?
I know at our school we have like Adopt a Class come in. These are business partners that come in and they have relationships with the kids. We've had reading buddies come in and just like read with the kids. One-to-one coaches who work with the teachers and the kids. Luckily at our school, we have a lot of community involvement. Like our firefighters and our policemen come in often and we'll like read to the kids, and we do a field trip where we walk to the police station, so they build those relationships with them there. So I think any opportunity for anybody to come to the school is fantastic, but yeah, we're lucky that we have a lot at our school, so.
Yeah, and Educating KY does have a big QR code. Nancy Costello, you could raise for ways that anybody in the audience would want to get involved with different activities, including Start a School Assistance, SOSA, which is basically you show up at the beginning of the school year to different elementary schools within the River Cities, and you are the person that smiles at the kids off the bus or out of the car, or opens up all of those milk cartons, all those kind of things. And then there's many other ways, Adopt a Class and lots of other opportunities. But there are ways, and I love that you said that, April, about, we need it to be a community, and we need the community to kind of come into our schools, because you're right, teachers cannot do it all. So, love that.
We've got about 10 or 15 minutes left, and we could go on for probably 3 more hours because we haven't even talked about teacher retention, chronic absenteeism, test scores, kindergarten readiness. So I kind of want to do a couple of things here because we obviously are focused on community solutions and sort of what can we all do, but I think there are community solutions to be had on each of these things that might be clever. I'm going to start with kindergarten readiness because we have a kindergarten teacher here. One of the questions from the audience lays out some of the numbers. Statewide, it's less than 50%. It's about 46%. Some of the River City districts are less than that, as recently as a couple of years ago being in the 30%. So how do you get the numbers up? Because kindergarten readiness means they're not in a classroom yet.
Yeah.
We don't have that structure of an education system. So how do we get them more ready to come to Hannah's class?
For one, I think that there should be a way to get information out to parents about what exactly kindergarten readiness looks like.
Good, I was going to ask you to define that too.
Because, I mean, if I were not a teacher, I probably wouldn't know. Like, I'd think, oh, they're going to school to learn all of these things, so I don't really have to work on these. Not to say I'm not going to, but like, they're going to go to school and learn all this. But ideally, when they come to kindergarten, we'd like them to be able to hold a pencil, have those fine motor skills that they need to begin writing, at least know like the letters in their name, maybe how to write their name. It's great if they know more than this, but I think I was actually talking with somebody yesterday about a way we wanted to get out into the community to like seek out younger age children who were not in kindergarten yet. But to find a way to give them information about like, hey, we have a preschool. We'd love for you to, come in and go to preschool here, or just to see what kinds of kids are out there and to be able to give them the resources that they need to be able to get their kids ready for kindergarten. And I know that there's some communication out there about what kindergarten readiness is, but I think there's confusion about it. So I think if schools were better, or not necessarily school, we're better about getting that information out there so that parents knew exactly what it looked like to be kindergarten ready, we would have more kids who are on that level when they come to kindergarten. Like I said, we're working on ideas. We're hoping, at least in our district, that we can get those levels up, because it does help a lot with getting the kids where they need to be. So yeah.
So really, we know that they're ready for kindergarten when they come into kindergarten and they're assessed using the Bergrantz screener. So kindergarten teachers can't be judged based upon what they have not instructed, what they have not done. So really, kindergarten readiness, and we say this with Read Ready Covington, Read Ready is everything that comes before reading, math, science, etc. It's all of those. It's oral language. It's knowing your own phone number, your parent's name, your own last name, how to hold the pencil, the fine motor, gross motor, all of those things. And those things are out there through sites like Let's Learn Kentucky. .org, KET PBS Kids, all of these things, all the description and the list of criteria are all there, are skills and knowledge that they need. But we still have some barriers in our community. Some families don't have access to that information. So we have to go out into the community. And so with Read Ready Covington, that is a community-based collaborative that works with everyone. Parents can go to the library and learn about this. They can ask to have their child screened with the Ages and Stages questionnaire. It's a screener from 1 month all the way up to 60 months or 5 years of age. They can ask their pediatrician if they administer it. They can go to, they can contact partners to learn about this. So what kindergarten readiness is today is not what it was when you were a child. And because we had one phone number growing up. It didn't keep changing. And my mom and dad didn't have different ones. And my grandma didn't have a third one. And I don't remember my, anything at this point because I'm confusing all three. So that's a real challenge that our kids have now that we didn't have. So learning what kindergarten readiness is, it's out there in information, but you're right, we as a community have to keep getting that information out there in multiple ways, because you might connect with one family, and some of the ways are what you do in Newport when you go door to door and you meet with those kindergarten parents. We do that through our housing authority. I've gone door to door and met with families and asked them, it's a listening session really, what is it you need? What do you think you need to help your child to be kindergarten ready? And then also to share information. And then even more so, to issue a call to action. It's not going to happen if you don't do it, because you are the most important person in that child's life. I can't do it as a teacher until, without you, because you give them that grit, that sense of ability or accomplishment or potential. You give them the confidence to do those things. You place the expectations on them, and you give them that basic oral language and all of the other skills that we know are available. So it's not really the school that's getting them kindergarten ready, but some school districts are. We just learned this morning in a group that Ludlow, Kentucky has baby panthers. So for 1 to 3 year olds, is that right, Karen?
Yeah, two years. 2
Yeah,
2 years, yeah.
2 years. That once a month they can come in. They don't have to come every month, but they can come in, and those kindergarten teachers and an assistant they get to know the families before they're in kindergarten, before they're even in preschool. So that's one of the things schools do, because they see it as a need, but then cities and agencies and neighborhood associations are also doing things.
So if you came here or you're watching looking for a way to, the big great idea that may be needed, kindergarten readiness is what I'm hearing is one area where a community partnership is sort of ripe for the picking.
Yeah, you could ask a group of people, when does learning start? And I think that's a great question to see what you get, because what a lot of people do not know is 80% of a child's brain is developed before they are 3. 90% of the architecture of a brain is formed before they are 5, before they ever come to school. So learning starts when that baby's in the belly. And that baby needs to be sung to and read to, and then that baby's born, and that language development needs to continue. So I think reinforcing that, when does learning start? Oh, right when that baby's in the belly. Continue that in our communities is really going to reinforce these skills that we're talking about.
I want to talk about something you brought up as you set the table for us tonight, which was the chronic absenteeism.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong, 10% of days in the school year miss is the definition of chronic absenteeism. This one I think gets tricky because what is the recourse right now?
Well, I think, yeah, there's several things that are going on. I will say, and just with my recent work with the River Cities, is a lot of schools are looking for creative solutions for what is it that we could do, kindergarten all the way up through high school, to reduce the amount of chronic absenteeism. And there, a lot of times it really is as simple as partnering with families. I will call out again, Dayton School District does such a beautiful job of, as soon as a child is absent, they are on the phone asking about what's going on with that child. And then, so building that relationship with the family, is it a barrier? Oftentimes, it is not a reflection on the student, it's a reflection on perhaps some dynamics going on with the family. Housing insecurity, food insecurity, whatever that dynamic is, and then the school district offers that arm, that outreach to be a liaison. And I will come pick up your child, I will come, all of these barriers, they remove those so that they're able to reduce those number of chronic absenteeism issues. So you see all these creative things, but so much of it is just, there's the problem, the solution is not one size fits all. That's really about building this kind of coalition around putting that child at the center and then bringing the family into that conversation. So again, there's not a recipe for success. It's more, let's go to work to find those ingredients for that recipe.
You touched on it. What's driving this? The numbers went up after COVID, but they were still what a lot of us would consider pretty high in 2018, 2019. But most districts in Northern Kentucky, particularly the river cities, are 20 to 30% of students are chronically absent. So what's driving it?
Yeah, I think there's not one real reason, but I kind of touched on it with what I introduced with. A lot of it is there is not a family connection. So the families are having struggles. There's the survival mode kicks into gear, and I don't see the sense of urgency or the why to send my children to school when I've got all these other issues. So the purpose of school or the what school provides has been reduced in terms of like the hierarchy of needs, right? So, school's very low on the priority list when I've got all of these other barriers. And so that is where we try to figure out what all those other barriers are, and then let's try to generate solutions for them. But I think it really goes back to the simple effect of we need to have a relationship with our kids and families.
I think that, just impressing upon them that they need to be there is one thing, but I agree with you on that, because one of the things that we see is transportation is an issue. If you miss the bus, you're not going to get to school because you don't have a car. Because we don't have a neighborhood school that we can walk to. I don't know how they do it in Boone County, because that's a big area and big schools and a lot of distance. Kenton County has that too, Campbell County. But in our river cities, even if we lose that ability just to walk to school, we lose the ability to get to school if we have missed a bus. So that's one, and there are some solutions. They work around picking them up, like Jenny said. For impressing on parents what that 1 or 2 days each month means is important, because you think, oh, it's only 1 or 2 days, but that's a lot of instruction time. And it's the consistency of, I missed this, so tomorrow they're going to go on to the next level of that concept, and I'm not going to understand it. So I'm kind of working harder, and then kids don't want to go to school if they're working harder than everybody else, or they're feeling ignorant, or less than. They don't want to go to school, so maybe they're going to be sick, or so it is a lot of those different kind of issues, and making sure that I think impressing on parents the fact that being in school is the best place for their child when they are going through trauma or stressors in their family. Let us have them. I've told parents, bring them in their pajamas and give me a bag with their clothes, and they can get dressed in school. That's okay. We want them here no matter where or what's going on. Let us take care of them during the day, and you can take care of this other stuff. And that's probably too broad of a brush for that, but that is kind of the general concept. They are safer in school, learning and being given attention than having to be part of what might be going on outside of school.
Hannah, I know your kiddos are young, but if one of them is missing a day, at least a day every other week, what impact does that have on them as it relates to the rest of the class, but does it impact the rest of the class too?
It definitely has an impact on them. It puts them behind their peers because we move at a pretty quick pace in kindergarten. Luckily, we do spiral a lot, but it does put them behind. We have to spend time catching them up, whether that be, in their own one-on-one time or in a small group. As far as the rest of the class, it doesn't really impact them too much. Well, I'll rewind. It might because sometimes those kids who miss a lot of school are missing the structure of school, so they're not as used to like the routines and the procedures of the classrooms. So I have had those kids who miss so much school that they're not getting into the routine, so they come to school and they're just kind of like, oh, I'm doing whatever I want, and kind of disrupting the class. So I have seen that happen. So yeah, it definitely does have an impact when they are missing that school. But like they said, we talk to the parents. We have a great FRC provider who, will give the students alarm clocks, give them clothes if they need clothes, or we have a van that picks students up out of district, like those kids who are facing, homelessness. So we just do everything we can to kind of get rid of those barriers to help get those kids to school. So yeah.
All right. So we have just a few minutes left. I want to let you all know in the audience and those streaming, if you're using Pigeonhole, our closing poll is open. It's not really a poll this time. We found it is more fun and useful for us to leave this open-ended for you to answer it. If you look at it, we're asking you to let us know what is an educational strategy or initiative that you would support after you listen to what our panelists have described as some of the problems, some of the solutions they see working, and some of the ideas. Maybe it's your own idea. We can make this a Shark Tank thing one of these days, and you can pitch ideas to help solve these things. But go ahead, if you're in Pigeonhole, fill that out for us. That'll help kind of drive some of conversation, follow-up conversations that will happen. That helps look at some coverage opportunities. Maybe there's a story idea in there that people may not know about, and we can get more broadly out there. I want to have each of you kind of give your final word on this, and I'll frame it and I'll ask it this way. What would be the most important thing you would want everyone watching at home or sitting in the room today to know about the term partnership when it comes to education? What's the takeaway as we all go back to our families and our students after tonight?
For me, I'd say you are a bridge. You're standing on the bridge and you are a bridge. There are the parents. I mean, you're the parent, there's the school, there's your child, there's the student. Usually someone needs to not only interpret what's being said, but also translate what's being said. So sometimes as an adult, you can hear a parent, you can hear a teacher say something and translate it to your child in a way that your child can better understand it. So sometimes you have to stand in the middle of the bridge and be the bridge to be able to be that connection for your child. So, okay, I know you say you're having struggles with this, but when I talk to your teacher, they mention these resources are available. Oh, I didn't know that I passed that door all the time. Oh, he doesn't know. Okay, so let him know I'll be standing at the door. Oh, so the more you're talking to the teacher or the school and you're translating to your kid, before you know it, your kid's moving closer, the school's moving closer, you're all on the bridge and you're also bridging the gaps. So if anything, stay curious, but also be willing to translate and interpretate. And if you can't do any of just keep saying, I'm gonna keep trying to communicate. Communication can go a long way, so and stay curious. Stay curious, even if you have to learn a TikTok dance. It's worth it, I promise. If that brings you a connection, try that as well.
And before we go on, a specific question for you that I didn't have time to ask because I think it works well at the end. How can someone learn more about Parent Camp?
Oh, I have some information.
Great.
I brought flyers and everything that explains everything about what we do, so feel free to find me afterwards. Yeah.
Excellent. Pam.
I think for me, it's just important for the community to know that educators and the community are in a partnership together. I don't know anybody who became an educator because they don't love kids. Like I tell my students all the time I love them. I tell them I spend more time with them than I do my own child because I have 50-50 custody with my kid. So I think just knowing that we are in a partnership and we want what is best for your kid, just the same as you want what is best for your kid. So to trust us, to know that we're working with you and that we're working on solutions to, do the best we can to do whatever we can to provide your child what it is that they need.
I think partners are neighbors, they're friends, they're advisors, and they ultimately, we're all equal in this journey together. And partnerships are essential because we are communal human beings. Human beings are communal. And I think we're never going to get there unless we really listen to each other.
I would go back to what I said, before, that partners do stuff together. So I would say, in thinking about if you are a parent, a guardian, a grandparent, a community member, advocate for ensuring that partnership exists, because like Hannah's classroom, that partnership exists. I've seen it where it didn't exist as well with certain teachers or leaders for whatever reasons. So advocate. And for building leaders, superintendents, teachers, the educators that are watching, I think I challenge you to think about your mindset and what partnership could look like, and think about how we could advance and encourage and welcome that partnership at even a greater and deeper level than you currently are, by thinking innovatively and creatively and leaning on others who are doing that well.
Excellent. So we still have this room until 8 o'clock when the library closes. Our folks who have brought information and resources for you are back there. Our panelists will be around. If your question didn't get asked, I'm sorry. We ran out of time, but they can maybe answer it if you are in the room, if you're streaming us or watching us online. Thank you for watching us. Before you go, remember to support Link NKY's work and everything that they do, and join us for one final 2025 community conversation, December 4th. It will be about the future of work in Northern Kentucky, and it will not be here, which is throwing me for a curveball. We'll be at Spark House, the brand new facility right on Madison in Covington. I'm excited to be in that space. We have an exciting speaker there, so we'll see you December 4th. Thank you so much for taking time to come here and be with us or stop and stream us and watch us online. We appreciate everything you do. One more round of applause for all of our panelists up here. And for the Kenton County Library and Link and our friends at NKU and everyone who makes this possible. Thank you all.